me to go? All right.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning and wake up, West Coast. You have no idea how excited we are to be back in person. It is just so wonderful to be in front of a live crowd. We did these remotely last year where I was looking into a TV screen and delivering it like the Today Show, but it's so much more fun to be here with you. So I'm Jane Clark, president of the Chamber. Not only were we back together, we are in this beautiful space at the Hayworth Hotel. There are so many partners that made this project happen. Certainly Hope College, the Hayworth family, and the Hayworth Corporation, but also some of our local members. And these local members sponsored our mingle time this morning, and that's GMB Architecture and Owens Ames Kimball Construction Company. So let's give them a big round of applause. Another nice thing, we have such a great partnership with the college that parking is not going to be a problem this year, in that they have promised no one will get a ticket this morning. So as long as you leave by 9:30, Hope College is doing no ticketing if you're in their Hope lot. So as you come back in future months, you don't need to worry about where you park. Our highest concern, as you are, is stay safe, stay open. We're masking up. That's going to be chamber protocol at events. So when you're not actively eating or drinking, we're going to ask you to put your masks back on. We want to beat the pandemic, and we know we've got to take every measure to do that. We also are delivering all of our content this fall. What we say is, have it your way. So if you woke up this morning and weren't feeling well, we certainly hope you stayed home, but tuned into our live option. Or if you're not comfortable in large gatherings, we've got an availability for you to watch a live stream. We've partnered with the City of Holland and their terrific video crew. So I want to say a special welcome to our folks that are watching our live stream at home today. And I want to direct your attention to these two screens. We've got a short message from the video crew with the City of Holland.
Holland, a true gem of West Michigan. Every day, the city's communication team promotes all the places and people that make our home one of a kind. Our stories are your stories, a window into our community. Our award-winning videos reach over 1 million views per year. Not too shabby. We've partnered with the Chamber to bring this event to you live. You know the drill. Follow and like our pages to stay up to date with the latest in our vibrant community.
So thank you, Mayor Fox, City Manager Keith Van Beek. We appreciate this partnership. Your video crew is top notch, and so we appreciate the production that you're doing for us today. So it's not a chamber event unless you're making great connections. So it's time for some networking. So if you've been here before, you know the routine. We've got 7 minutes for your table to have some tabletop introductions. I need one person just to step up and be the leader, and your job will be to make sure everybody's voice is heard. And the assignment today is to go around the table, introduce your name, your company, and since we're going to be talking about joy today, one thing that brings you joy, either in the workplace or in your personal life. So name, company, one thing that brings you joy. And we'll be back in 7 minutes. Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you made some great connections, and at the end of the program today, I hope you hang around and continue that networking. The Chamber is all about helping you find great business connections. So now it's my privilege to say a very big thank you to today's program sponsor. The law firm of Smith, Hoey, Rice, and Rogie is today's program sponsor. Jaron Nyhoff is with us today representing the company. They have been a chamber member for years and years, just a strong chamber member, especially supportive of our leadership program. Many of you are graduates from the West Coast Leadership Program. I think almost every single attorney at their firm has gone through this program, as well as someone who's in the class that's starting this week. So they have an office in downtown Holland and are here to serve your legal needs. So let's give a thank you to Smith, Hoey, Rice, and Rogie. So today's keynote speaker, this is a first for us. We are always on the lookout for great speakers, and we try to have a unique speaker at every single event. But today, we're bringing somebody back for the third time. We survey our members after every single program, and you have given us such high ratings for Rich Sheridan that we ask him back. Now, Rich, I'm sorry if I'm setting this bar too high for you, but we want you to know that you have been a fan favorite every time you come and visit the Chamber. And so as we thought, what do we want to have the message to be the first time we're all back together, we thought about joy. The joy of being back together, the joy that we're safe and healthy, and the joy that we can bring to our workplaces. So Rich is the CEO of Menlo Industries in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and also a well-known author and speaker. So I'd like to invite Rich Sheridan to the stage. We're going to mic Rich up so that our digital audience can view, and then I'll share this microphone with you as well.
One moment, please. Let's get the wires out of the way.
Be thinking of your questions also today. We'll have some time at the end of the presentation for audience Q&A, so we'll look forward to that opportunity as well. So Rich, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Yeah, I was talking with Kelly just at breakfast here, and I think we decided the theme for the last 18 months is we just got to figure things out. Has this been a year and a half of just figuring things out? And I would like to call out some special attention to the unsung heroes in the room, the people whose job is at their best if they are invisible. And it's the gentleman in the back with the camera, the gentleman over here who was spending a lot of time at a control panel. And let me tell you, there was about an hour and a half, not a year and a half, of just figuring things out. Congratulations, you did it. Way to go. So there has never been a time, I think, that any of us had to discover what we've been doing for the last, in my case, 19 years before the pandemic to get ready for the time we went through. There's no question that building a strong culture, a strong intentional culture, a strong intentionally joyful culture is probably the most important thing I've ever done. And what I want to walk through today, because many of you, since I've been here 3 times now, and the first 2 were right after my 2 books. So Joy Inc. came out in 2013, I was here in 2014, Chief Joy Officer, for sale out in the lobby. Came out 2018 and I was here in 2019, and now here I am 2021. There is no book, but there is a story. And the story I want to share with you today is how joy and love can pull us through. Now, I have this very simple model that I have learned to describe in a way that helps me, but also helps a lot of people think about the cultures we have inside of our organization. And the model I use is based on a hobby I have. I learned to fly an airplane when I was just a kid. I was about 20 years old when I got my pilot's license. And so I have a great fondness for aircraft. But even if you don't have a pilot's license like me, you know there are 4 basic forces at work that keep an airplane aloft. There is that wonderful force of lift created by the camber of the wing. The force of weight that tries to pull it back down to the earth, so there's got to be more lift than weight. The force of thrust that pulls us forward, provided by either a propeller or a jet engine, and the force of drag that holds us back. Now think about the analogy of this inside of our human organizations, inside of our companies. What are the analogous forces inside of a human organization? There's that lift of human energy, probably one of the most squandered energy forces in business today. The weight that holds us back, pulls us down, the weight of bureaucracy, meeting load. The thrust that pulls us forward is the thrust of purpose, and I will speak more on this purpose later, and the drag that holds us back is the drag of fear. So what can we do as leaders to actually get these forces in the right balance? Well, with human energy, providing our teams clarity and the ability to go to work and get meaningful things actually done. If you're at all like me, I'm kind of a checklist-oriented guy. If I'm doing 10 chores on the weekend, most of which have been outlined for me by my favorite other, and I've already gotten 3 of them done, I'll go back in the kitchen, write those 3 plus the other 7, just so I can have that feeling of crossing the 3 off that I already got done, right? And I save that list and present it later in the day. But that ability to get things done, it just feels so good. And I mean done and done well. The weight holds us back, meeting load. I know in some large organizations that I speak to, there are literally layers of management. From that layer and above are human sacrifices to meetings, right? You know, Zoom load. Ooh, we get to have the lawnmower here too. Zoom meeting load, right? Running from one meeting to the next. In the old days, at least we got to walk from one conference room to the next. Now it's just a button click and we're in the next meeting. And so this idea of meeting load will drag the human energy out of our organization. In fact, I have a simple formula for dragging the human energy out of your organization if you want to write it down. Number 1, have lots of meetings. Number 2, do not by any means make any decisions in those meetings. And if perchance, by mistake, you happen to make a decision, that's okay, just don't act on it. The thrust of purpose, externally focused. You know, we often talk about the purpose of a corporation. We think about that in business schools and that sort of thing. But I want to point beyond the 3 common stakeholders we typically try and focus on when we think about the purpose of our organization. I want to focus beyond our customers, our employees, and our stakeholders, because of course we have to serve them. If we don't serve them, we'll go out of business. But that is still self-serving. I want you to look past them and think about the people you want to bring delight to in the work that you do. For example, talking to Kelly at Metal Flow, they stamp out metal parts that end up in a lot of safety systems. Her customers are the OEMs and the tier 1 suppliers. Those are the people who pay her for the work that she and her team does. But the people she really serves, I will tell you, are the parents of teenagers who feel that their children are safe when the components that Kelly's team makes are operating properly in those automobiles that are driving all of our loved ones around every single day. So every one of us should be thinking about who do we serve beyond our normal stakeholders, because that kind of purpose can really pull our team through tough times, especially the kind of tough times we've been through lately. And the drag that holds us back, the drag of fear, there's so many examples of fear in our human organizations. I will tell you that for many years, I was taught to lead by using fear as a motivating tool. I had a boss who would tell me, Rich, if you see 2 people talking to each other in a corridor, just stand up to them and just walk up to them and stand there, and they'll get back to work. Andy, this is hilarious now. Andy's a member of the Menlo team. We've actually institutionalized two people talking to each other all day long. We work in pairs. And so it's a requirement of our work to talk to each other all day long. That same boss taught me to manage by walking around and annoying people. You know, Tom Peters invented the management by walking around concept, but my boss took it to the next level. He'd be like, hey Scott, how's it going? What you working on? You almost done? You coming in this weekend? How's that project? I heard it's behind. Can you feel your blood pressure rising right now? I am really, really good at this. So what do we have to do to get our human organizations off of the ground every day? Well, how about if we decrease the fear? We'll never get rid of all of it, and it wouldn't even be healthy to remove all fear from an organization. We should be afraid of going bankrupt, not making payroll, that sort of thing. Those are important fears. But let's not add to the mix. Let's decrease the meeting load. How about if we adopt a strategy of take action versus take a meeting? Wouldn't that be neat? Let's do the things that can increase the lift of human energy in our team and make sure people are still focused on the thrust, the purpose of our organization. And if we pull this off, we will in fact fly to heights and distances that were previously unimaginable, even by the founders of the company. So, many of you know the Menlo story. Some of you probably don't. Let me give you a little peek inside of our company. Now, good news, we just celebrated our 20th birthday in June. Thank you. 20th birthdays for companies, that's a cool moment under any circumstances. Celebrating a 20th birthday this past June was remarkable because I will tell you the future was not guaranteed. It never is, but boy, oh boy, was it not guaranteed. Now, there are three versions of Menlo that I'm going to talk about. Traditional Menlo, 19 years. Pandemic Menlo, last 18 months. And what I now call emergent Menlo, what comes next. And happy to talk about that in the discussion because I'd love to hear your ideas on this. But here is a picture. Here's a video. There is no sound, so don't worry, AV crew. There is no sound. This is a picture inside of traditional Menlo. One big open room. No walls, no offices, no cubes, no doors. People working to a computer all day long. The pairs are assigned and we switch them every 5 working days. The human energy that results from that construct alone is palpable. Most people who come visit us, who walk in our door, and we entertain about 3,000 to 4,000 visitors a year who come from all over the world just to see how we do what we do, walk in the front door, and I'm often with them, and they say, wow, because you can actually feel the human energy. And then there was that week. How many of you remember this week? How many of you knew exactly where you were when this week hit? I will tell you, I was climbing on an airplane in San Diego on March 13th of 2020 to fly home. As I was walking onto the plane, the president was on the monitor declaring the national emergency, shutting down flights from Europe. I was worried he was going to shut down all the domestic flights and I was going to have to go back and get that rental car we had just turned in to drive home from San Diego. But this day and this week, it was like a fire drill at Menlo. Because think about the construct I talked about. 2 people sitting next to each other at a single computer, sharing a keyboard and a mouse, talking in close proximity to one another, switching the pairs every 5 days. You'll see later we do a daily stand-up meeting with a 2-horn plastic Viking helmet. You could not invent a more contagious work environment than the one I just described, okay? We probably would have all been in the hospital in a week if we had stayed working. So it was get out of the building, get out as quick as you can. It was like a fire drill, take as much equipment as you need, go home, figure it out. It was a year and a half of figuring it out. And I will tell you, the team adjusted faster than I did. I'm the guy who gives talks, who writes books on this. And then suddenly I got to figure out, for me, how this is going to work. Now, we made the physical distancing requirement work. Everybody went home, just like all of you did, figured out what corner of my house am I going to put an office in, right? Am I going to be in the dining room? Am I going to take over the old storage closet that's down in the basement? That's what I did. But we made it work. We absolutely embraced the distancing required to keep us safe, and we completely rejected the idea of social distancing. We just think it's the wrong construct. It's the wrong term. We don't have to be apart socially, even if we're apart physically. This is some pictures of pandemic Menlo. Now, we have had some traditions at Menlo. Dogs. Dogs are regularly in our office every single day. 1 to 3 dogs. We actually have a clause in our lease with our landlord that we can have up to 3 dogs in our space. Don't tell them. We have violated that clause every now and then. Not by a lot. No more than 6 dogs, I'm sure. We had no idea how many cats of Menlo there were. Have any of you noticed that cats, for some reason, want to be between their owners and their Zoom camera? You got the tail going by. You got the cat playing with the mouse, which makes sense. The other tradition we've had, babies. I'll talk about that at the end of my talk, but we have invited newborns to come into the office all day, every day, for months on end. Not a daycare. Baby is with the parent all day long. Well, we've had 26 Menlo babies in the last 14 years. Now, Pop got to bring the first Menlo grandbaby to work with him. And that's little Quinn, one of the twins that was born in 2019 to my oldest daughter. Elsie, draped around George's neck, gets to come in with him to work most every day. She's about 2 years old now. The babies usually come in from about 3 months old to 7. Now Elsie gets to come in almost every day because 2-year-olds, kind of like the cats, want to see what could possibly be more interesting than me on that screen. We got to know our people better, I think, during the pandemic if we just opened our eyes and started peeking into the lives of our people at home, right? We found out about those paintings on Josh's wall that were painted by his grandfather. We found out why Sarah named her cats the weird names that she did. We found out how much George is still enjoying being the dad to Elsie when she comes to work every day. This has been a remarkable opportunity to deepen the relationships with our team members. So, yes, this has been Menlo. This 19 years of working collaboratively in pairs in one big open room. We have high-tech anthropologists who go out into the world and study people in the native environment of the people we're designing and developing software for. That's what we do for a living. So we design and develop custom software on behalf of our business clients. Our team has thrived in this for 19 years. And then, boom, all gone. The practices had to change immediately, and I'll show you what it looks like now. We'll do a little bit of back and forth between traditional Menlo and pandemic Menlo, and a little peek into emergent Menlo. But even though the practices change, the principles remain the same. The principles of teamwork, collaboration, and trust, communication, relationships with one another and with our customers, the empathy we have for the people we intend to serve. Our goal is to delight the people who use the software we create. People who don't pay us for what we do, people we will never meet in large numbers, but we want them to love the software we've created, and then the human energy of our team. All of this remained. And I will tell you, the team adapted way faster than I did. I have come to believe that the 19 years we have spent creating this intentionally joyful culture prepared us for this 18 months like no other time in our history. And then, as if the pandemic itself wasn't enough, the good ship Menlo's business got tossed up on a rock, the hull broke open. Our business in 2020 dropped by 60%. We had our best year ever in 2019. 2020 was going to be even better. 60% drop. One of our largest customers, one of the biggest automotive companies in the world, called me at the beginning of the pandemic. We were just about to complete phase 1 of a 3-phase project. Phase 1 was the smallest phase. Phase 2 and 3, huge. And they said, put the project on hold. In fact, wrap it up. You have 12 billable hours left in this project. We need you to cut that back to 8. I'm like, what? You're calling me to take 4 billable hours out of a project? This is one of the largest automotive companies on planet Earth, and they're making a phone call to a CEO to cut 4 billable hours out of a project. Like, oh my, this is gonna be big. So we gathered the team before we sent them home. We said, guys, this is way bigger than us. We can't do this by ourselves. We don't know if we live through this, but I can guarantee you this, it will not happen on our own. It's gonna require a team effort, and it's probably gonna require some kind of intervention that's way bigger than us. And what we told them was, we want a 5-step plan to get back to thriving again, which is, by the way, where we are now, which is delightful. Number 1, survive. We made a lot of big changes very quickly. We cut pay, we cut hours, we put some people back to 0, we kept everybody on our health insurance so that we could keep them safe and healthy with their family members. We did everything we could. We turned in our parking passes, we cut our janitorial staff for our office, everything we could to simply survive. And then, probably one of the biggest steps we had to take was adapt to this new world. To figure out how are we gonna make Menlo work the way it always has, despite the fact that we're all home and connected just by thin electronic tethers now rather than being in a room together. And then get the business back to some level of sustaining. So we can tough this out, because we didn't know how long it was last. How many of you, like me, thought that this was about an 8-week adventure we were about to go on, right? 8 weeks, that's it. It won't even be done 8 weeks from now. We're 540-ish days into this thing. So sustain was important because we didn't know how long we were gonna have to survive. And then I watched a Patrick Lencioni virtual conference during the beginning of the pandemic. And what he said was, and this really stuck with me, that there are 2 paths, 2 forks in a road coming ahead for businesses. Number 1 fork is the big one. Do you survive or don't you? Those that survive have another, perhaps more important fork, and that is the choices you make as leaders will determine whether you emerge stronger from this pandemic and hit the ground running when things start to turn around, or you emerge weaker and your competitors will run by you. He said that is a leadership choice, whether you choose to emerge stronger or emerge weaker. And that really hit home with me. So we built every new thing we did with this metric of, are we emerging stronger from what we did? And if we do these things and keep doing them well, just like the basic blocking and tackling that every sports team has to go through, we will thrive again, and we are. Delighted to say that, I'm delighted to be able to say that. So, I mentioned, for example, that 3,000 to 4,000 people come from all over the world every year, get on an airplane, fly to Detroit, drive to Ann Arbor, book a hotel room, and come spend anywhere from a day to a week visiting Menlo, learning about how we do what we do, seeing the unusual practices we do. This has been a constant. We were planning on 5,000 people coming from all over the world in 2020. By February, boop, 0. Nobody coming. Between March of 2020 and just about 2 months ago, 0 people came to the office for the obvious reasons. But June of 2020, we had a friend call, said, hey, how are you guys doing? I mean, this must have been an incredible adaptation you've had to make. I know how your company works. How did you figure this out? And I said something just off the cuff. I said, well, would you like to see it? And he says, what do you mean? I said, what if we give you a virtual tour of the virtual Menlo? He says, you can do that? And I said, I have no idea. I said, you want to try it with us? You want to run the experiment? So we did it, and it worked great. And he said a really nice thing on LinkedIn about us, and I just wrote a thank you to him when he said that. And I said, any of your friends want to come? Just write us at experience@menloinnovations.com. Oh my goodness. Within 2 weeks, we were doing 11 tours a week. Since June of 2020, We've had over 2,000 people come from 64 countries and 39 states, virtually. People who've read my books, people in Hong Kong who've read my books, people in the Philippines who've read my books, people who would have never been able to come to Menlo because it would have been too costly, too time expensive, too inconvenient. And now they just click on a link and they come and visit. You can do that too. You don't even have to drive from here to Ann Arbor. And that's not that bad a drive when there's no accidents, like there was yesterday on the way here. Fortunately, we were not in it. But this has been a remarkable outreach of our team. This has been a remarkable change for our company to think that we now have this kind of reach. This has democratized our tours in a way I would have never imagined. And the neat thing is, of course, in the spirit of Emerge Stronger, why would we ever stop the remote tours? Why would we ever stop the virtual tours? Of course we want to go back to the in-person tours. That's still a lot of fun for us. But this will stay forever. Now, what did people want to come see? They wanted to see this. How on earth do you get two programmers to pair with one another all day long? You know programmers, right? I was a programmer. This is kind of a cool week for me. It was 50 years ago this week that I first touched a computer as a freshman in high school in Macomb County. Macomb County being one of the first 3 counties in the nation to offer computer science at the high school level. Well, the stereotypical Dilbert-esque programmer doesn't look like this, right? We usually put our programmers in sensory deprivation chambers, turn the lights down low, let them put headphones on, keep it library quiet, make sure they can come at weird hours so they don't overlap with other humans, and then later lament that they lack interpersonal skills. Who knew? But this has been Menlo for 19 years. 2 programmers, 1 computer, sharing a keyboard back and forth all day long, collaborating with one another, problem solving together. Well, how on earth can you make this work in pandemic time? Well, I think the cat plays a role. But this is Sarah and Ethan pairing together. This is what Andy's life is like at Menlo. You can talk to him afterwards. This is our daily stand-up meeting. Even the cat goes to stand-up meeting. But this is how they work. The shared work is on the left-hand screen, the pair partners on the right-hand screen, little research panel on the right-hand screen, collaborating with one another. When they have to work with other team members, they will jump in, bring them into the meeting as well, just to collaborate with them. But this has been Menlo. This has been pandemic Menlo now for the last 18 months. I would have never guessed our team would have enjoyed this, that they would have thrived in this environment, but they have. I don't think it's as good as being in the room together, but it works. And I can't unsee the fact that it works. We have a daily stand-up meeting. How many of you have anything like a daily stand-up meeting every day? Yeah, we have a daily stand-up meeting at Menlo. We have some whimsically irreverent ways to do this. So we have a dartboard call the meeting. Like, how could a dartboard call a meeting? The dartboard has an alarm clock. Why does the dartboard need an alarm clock? We have no idea. Time for darts. I don't But we programmed it. We're programmers, so it goes off at 10 o'clock every morning, and we gather in this big circle, and we pass around the 2-horned plastic Viking helmet, which is now the iconic symbol of Menlo. We just like it because we work in pairs, we report out in pairs, so having a 2-handled talking stick is actually really convenient. And this has been our daily stand-up routine. Yep, even the babies come to stand up. That's Josiah, that's Lisa's little boy, but the babies do get handed around at the office. So this has been our tradition of stand-up. Well, not doing this in pandemic times. This would be, again, about as dangerous as you could get. And so we said, I know, let's just switch to Zoom. Well, one of the things we prided ourselves in our typical daily stand-up is it takes 13 minutes. Meeting of 60 people, everybody talks 13 minutes. We think meetings are mind-numbing, spirit-sucking, energy-draining devices of management. So the ones we have, we keep short. Well, we went to Zoom. Complete, utter disaster. Took 35 minutes. Nobody knew who was first, nobody who was paired with who, nobody knew if everybody went, nobody knew if we're done, and it just went on, and man, we were like, you gotta be kidding. Of course, the other thing is, one of the reasons we can do short stand-ups is because we stand. Well, in our Zoom meeting, everybody's sitting. I don't know, people talk more when they sit. You ever notice that? Well, the real problem was we lost the Viking helmet. So the team spirit to the rescue. This was an invention by them. Let's use the Zoom chat window. As we arrive, just type in, I'm next with Andy. Keeley says, I'm next with Ted, and it just lines us all up. We know who's first, we know who's next, we know who's last, we know who's paired with whom, and suddenly the Zoom meetings got back down to 13 minutes. Yay, joy. And then, of course, round about June. Remember June? Anybody remember June of this year? Pandemic was over. We're all vaccinated. We could get back to the office. So we started coming back in. We had a whole plan. By September 1st, we're going to be fully back. No. But we tried. So we started having some people in the office and many people at home. And so we just said, well, let's have the screen in the room and let's have the people in the room gather around it. Complete, utter, uncomfortable disaster again. And then we started making it fun again. Here's Erica paired with Jenny. Jenny decided, yeah, I need a Viking helmet too, so she just drew one on a postcard. And so, again, what I watched through this whole time was this emergent Menlo. We're still going through this, is this adaptation that has happened over and over and over again. So how do we do this inside of our organizations? What do we have to do to build a culture of joyful leadership? Well, start with that purpose. Understand who you serve and what would delight look like for them. In fact, those are two important questions. If I was going to have you carry anything back with you today, are those two questions. Who do you serve? What would delight look like for them? And again, take your customers, your shareholders, and your employees off the table. Of course you should be serving them. Do not stop serving them. But think beyond those three stakeholder groups. Value leadership over hierarchical authority. Pursue systems thinking over bureaucratic thinking. Create simple, repeatable, measurable, visible systems to run your company. Create a system of caring for your team, especially now. You know, you can imagine in this difficult time, especially when we're remote from one another, we might sense some trouble on the other end of the line with our team members. We have taught our team to stop, pause, look at the other person and say, are you okay? Just check in with them as a human being, long before you're checking in with them as a colleague or another employee or another programmer. Build a system where you can be learning every minute of every day. That is a great way to lift the human energy of your team. And then become storytellers. My card says Chief Storyteller at Menlo. I will tell you, this is probably the most important role I play at Menlo. Stories are where we build culture. If culture eats strategy for breakfast, storytelling is what sets the table for the meal. We have been using as humans storytelling for the entirety of human history. You think of totems, you think of campfire stories, you think of songs of nations and anthems. All of these things are what build strong culture intentionally. And ultimately, this is what has carried us for all of our years and is carrying us today into Emergent Menlo. This idea of embracing change and running the experiment. Boy, if there was ever a time we needed to embrace change, now is it. And our famous story of this started 14 years ago when Tracy and her husband had little Maggie, their second child. She was ready to come back to work after maternity leave, but the daycare they planned to use was full. Grandparents lived too far away to help, and she came to me and said, Rich, I don't know what to do. And I looked at her and I said, bring her in. She said, what do you mean? I said, bring her into work. She said, all day? I said, sure. She said, every day? I said, why not? And she looked around that big open room that was Menlo. She said, Rich, where will I put her? Because this was not an offer to build a daycare. Baby was going to be with a parent all day long. I said, Tracy, she's 3 months old. She's not going anywhere. Put her in a pack and play in a front pack, something like that. She said, what if she makes a fuss? I said, here, it's like a noisy restaurant. You'll never hear it. She said, come on, you've raised 3 girls. What if she raises that big baby fuss that'll destroy the ambiance of the whole space? The team won't like me anymore. I said, Tracy, you're the mom. I trust you. You'll do the right thing. We'll work it out together. Let's run the experiment. As I said earlier, that was 26 Menlo babies ago. You want to raise human energy of a team? Bring babies into the mix. It's awesome. above all else, lead with joy. Think about how you can lift the human energy of your team, keep your team focused on purpose, reduce the fear in your organization as much as humanly possible, and start trading away the bureaucracy for systems thinking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have time for a few questions. Anybody have a question for us? Yeah, Rob Pocock. Would stand up? Would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Rob Pocock with Hope College. I work with some clients, and they're all concerned about bringing people back. They're saying they don't want to come back. They love the new deal. What are you projecting Menlo 2025 is going to look like?
So what's it going to look like with people who maybe don't want to come back or do want to come back? Sure.
Yeah, we are facing the exact same challenge. I would have thought as soon as we said come on back, there would be a rush to the stage. No way, right? When you change human behavior for 500 plus days, it sticks. And that was a revelation for me. And so what I have noticed, and I've been talking to a ton of my colleagues out in industry, just trying to ask the very same question, what are they doing? The biggest mistakes I'm seeing right now are the employers are saying you're absolutely coming back in by a date certain, or you're absolutely never coming back in and we're selling the office. And that's just, pardon the language, that's just pissing everybody off. Because what I'm hearing from our team is, yes, they like the in-person collaboration, but they love the flexibility that this new environment offers. And I can't deny that what we have done over the past 18 months has worked and worked really well. Are there holes? Are there gaps? You bet there are. My favorite phrase at Menlo that drives my team crazy is, I think there is a work from home tax. It's a bill that's accumulating over time, and it's going to come due at the most inconvenient time possible, and we got to figure this out. This is on the leaders working with the team to figure out how do we make sure this can continue to work, how do we continue to grow our people. But I will tell you, and I'm not going to use his last name because you'll be searching for him and all that sort of thing. This wonderful young man over here, Andy, has joined our team. He lives here in Grand Rapids. And Andy, when he joined us, Andy is one of the, in fact, yesterday evening, stand up, Andy. I met Andy for the first time yesterday. You know what you don't see in Zoom? Holy cow, he's tall. There's a rule at Menlo, Andy. You can't be taller than the CEO, so you just, yeah. But Andy joined us, how long ago, Andy? Started June, so he's been with us about 3 months. When he joined us, he asked an important question for his life. He said, hey guys, I have this lease on an apartment that runs out in March. Can I stay working at home until the lease expires and then I'll move to Ann Arbor? And we said, absolutely. Well, then we started getting this pushback from a variety of team members, and we thought, you know what, let's start checking in with everybody. And then we called Andy. We had a conversation with him. I said, Andy, what are you thinking about coming to Ann Arbor? And I don't know, I remember maybe just a little bit of a pause. I mean, he's brand new, he's talking to the CEO, he's not gonna, wanna, but we could say, what's keeping you in Grand Rapids? Well, I can tell you there's a girl that's keeping him here. And that's, I assume that's still true, Andy? Okay. And instantly, I hope Andy remembers it this way, we said, just stay where you are. Don't worry about it. Maybe someday, who knows? But if you're happy in Grand Rapids, you've got family, you've got connections there, you got a girlfriend there, just stay there. And I would assume, Andy, you appreciated those words from us, right? So we get to keep Andy. Let me tell you, hanging on to our people right now is huge. We are seeing our version of the Great Resignation. As soon as we started making moves, telling the team they're coming back into the office, 2 of my programmers quit. They took a remote first job. One in California, one on the East Coast. We're like, okay, let's change that strategy. And so we're adapting. We're figuring it out. Is it perfect? Of course not. Does it work better for some of our team members? You bet it does. Does it work right now and maybe not later? Who knows? Now, the biggest change we're gonna have to figure out is our current lease expires in about a year. And we gotta figure out, our plan was the next office is gonna be bigger. Then we thought, well, maybe the same size. And now we're like, maybe smaller. But the neat thing for us as a business, for the first time in our history, we are no longer constrained by the physical size of our office. And that's a neat new opportunity that we've never considered before.
I think we have time for one more question. Anybody else? Robert?
Robert E. Leadership Consulting. One of the big questions that I'm wondering about is, as you're kind of in the enlightened space and you see things differently, how do you deal with those people that are coming in onto your staff or leadership staff? How do you change the conformity that we kind of did, or the issue that we have in other companies where there is so much interaction?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. And basically the question is, pretty much, I'll recharacterize it. Nobody who comes and joins Menlo, not Andy, not anybody else, ever worked in an environment like ours. And so there's an adjustment period for sure, right? And so we have a very intriguing interview process where we don't ask questions during the interview. Like, how could it be an interview when you don't ask questions? We make it an audition. We pair candidates with one another. And we give them the weirdest instructions ever. Help your peer partner get a second interview, even though they're competing for the same position you are. So right from the moment of first contact, we begin teaching our culture. We begin setting a different expectation. I used to believe, and I would tell people, that our hiring process was a hire for culture fit hiring process. I no longer believe that. Our hiring practice is a strong expectation setting hiring practice. And when you set reasonable, rational, sensible expectations for humans, they can adapt. It's amazing. Human beings, maybe didn't know this, are incredibly adaptable creatures when they have clear expectations set for them that are rational, reasonable, and sensible. And so when we start setting these clear expectations, guess what? People start behaving differently. And Robert, last night when we had dinner together, you brought a Joy Inc. book for me to sign. Thank you for that. That's joy for me. But even better, Andy said, oh, I've got a copy of that book right on my desk, right at work. Now, I'm assuming, well, I won't put him on the spot. I assume he read it. But imagine you have a strong enough culture that you could write 2 books about it and that your team could read those books. Imagine you have a strong enough culture that thousands of people a year come to see how it works. And the people on the tours are hearing stories of our cultural intentions, but our team members, because they're in the same room, are sitting right nearby hearing the same stories that you're telling over and over again. Imagine how clear the expectations are. And that gives people a chance to adapt. That gives people a chance to say, this makes sense to me. Now, it's not right for everyone, of course. No company should be. We can't be all things to all people. But we give people a chance to experience what this looks like in this unusual interview practice where we pair candidates together and then switch the pairs every 20 minutes with another candidate, because that's the way we work.
Gotta wrap it up. Please join me in thanking Rich Sheridan. Thank you, Rich, for those inspiring words. We all could use some joy in our life, and we appreciate those insights. So let me tell you what to expect next month. It will be October. We are not doing Wake Up West Coast in October because we're doing our annual meeting. So I hope to see all of you at our chamber annual meeting. It's Friday, October 1st. We're putting a big twist on things. We're going to be at Engedi Church at 11 a.m. from 11 to 12. There is plenty of room for social distancing, so we'll have a very safe event. And then instead of having everybody have lunch together, we're sending you out in our community to our restaurants. So we have a pool of restaurants who have invited our members in, and so you can choose to go for lunch at a member restaurant. So we're going to be spending our love, spending our time supporting our area restaurants after everything they've been through for the last 18 months. So we've sent you some emails, but go to our website, sign up for the annual meeting. You have the digital option, you have the in-person option, and you have the add-on of continuing the conversations around lunch. It's going to be a great program all about the power of connections. Then we'll bring you back here in November for our next Wake Up West Coast breakfast. So thank you for joining us today. It was so good to see you in person. Mask up, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.